Okay, well, I'm going to talk about the butterflies in Maryland, but just to let you all know, I love moths too. As, um, how's this? Good. My wife is here tonight, and she is a bug widow. Not really. She years ago, she we moved in a new house, and she said, "Honey, why don't you just use the bedroom down in the basement for your bug room?" And I have that now. It's a big room with hundreds of thousands of insects. So, um, how many species of butterflies are there in Maryland? Who knows that? It was in the intro. 11. Oh, well, more than that, 150 species of butterflies in Maryland. The butterfly populations do vary they have cyclical variation in population. Some years, certain butterflies are very common, and some years almost non-existent, as some of you may have noticed. Some butterflies have a very specific food plant, and if that food plant is gone or cut down, the butterfly won't be there. Some species have a wide range of food, which makes them more common. And a touchy subject, but I'll bring it up anyways, habitat destruction. That's been a very significant issue as far as why certain populations disappear. And then in the environment, you've also got parasites, and you've got sprays, insect sprays, and you've got weather. All those factors influence the amount of butterflies there are. Me personally, I've been collecting, do the math here, Bob, 65 years. And maybe it's just my age showing, but I think when I was younger, I think there was more butterflies. And I think even this year, and I may be wrong, depending on where you are and where you live, I think there's less butterflies. Now, I also collect butterflies for the Ladue Gardens. And if you go there, you'll see the tiger swallowtails everywhere and monarchs everywhere. So it's good to see the monarchs doing well. Now, the monarch is not protected by the Fish and Wildlife. It is, however, protected by what they call the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And that's just recently, a few weeks ago. So anyway, I've been all over. I've been very, very blessed and very lucky. I've been collecting in the Southwest, many places. I mean, Colorado, Minnesota, Iowa, New Mexico, Arizona, Louisiana, and all up the East Coast. Been very, very fortunate. I've been on top of Mount Washington 2 or 3 times. What an experience. There are some very rare butterflies up there, and we were up there one time in July, and I couldn't get up because it was icy. This is July, okay, where the highest wind ever recorded was in Mount Washington, 200 and some miles an hour, by the way. I don't have a degree in entomology. Anything I've learned, I've taught myself, and from good friends and experience has been a big teacher for me. And I said to my wife, and she said, I only know what I know. So what I'll talk to you tonight about is just my experience. Since the swallowtails seem to be very popular with everyone, and there are a number of species in Maryland, as you might know. There's the black swallowtail, which I think is less common than it used to be. There's the spice bush, the tiger swallowtail, which comes out probably about 3 times a year. And as the season goes, the dark females interbreed with the lighter males, and then you have intermediates. So you have that. Pipevine swallowtail, Hard to find, not as common as it used to be if it feeds on pipevine. And then you have something that's kind of unique to the state and other states. It's called Appalachiensis. Anybody ever hear of the Appalachian? Well, because it's just in the last 10 years. A friend of mine described a new swallowtail that comes out after the first brood of the tiger swallowtail. It only comes out once. Best place to find it is in Green Ridge State Forest around end of May into mid-June. A big, high-flying tiger swallowtail. It's called Appalachiensis, and the dark females are extremely rare. I was fortunate enough to catch one on the wing years ago, but they're very uncommon. Then, of course, you've got and someone mentioned the zebra swallowtails. Puck, I think you did. Anyone know what zebra swallowtails feed on? Pawpaw. Ever eat pawpaw? What do you think of them? I know. And they're out now. I think they're ripe now or in September, a month. My wife and I first experienced the fruit in West Virginia or Virginia, Harper's Ferry. Oh, yes. As you might know, the zebra swallowtail comes out 3 times a year. And in the spring, they're very small. And as the year goes along, the tails get larger. And I forget the name of all the varieties, Lecontii or something. I have in this case here a miniature zebra swallowtail that I caught many years ago at Elk Neck State Forest. But they come out. They're out. They're out now. You see them. And someone mentioned the giant swallowtail was their favorite. That's a very interesting butterfly. Now, the best place to see that butterfly, and it's very large for a swallowtail. One of the best places you can find it is Green Ridge State Forest. And I think that feeds on prickly ash, something like that. And they're big. If anyone's ever interested in maybe seeing them, I can give them the exact road where you could find them. So that's the giant swallowtail. And you find that all over. Well, here in the north, they're a little smaller than the ones in Florida, about 5-6 inches across. They're pretty big. They're pretty big. In Florida, for instance, you've got a tiger swallowtail subspecies that the tiger swallowtail is about this big. It is the biggest butterfly, I think, in the United States. So the Florida subspecies is at least 6 inches across, but that's only in Florida, not here. Okay. Tonight I did bring 3 cases of butterflies. I brought a case of Arizona butterflies just for interest's sake. At the end of the meeting, y'all can come up and take a look. I also brought a case of spring butterflies that occur in Maryland. And we'll talk about, there's a few in there that are probably, or at least 1 or 2, they're almost extinct from the state. We'll talk about that. I brought a case here with very rare and unusual butterflies from Maryland. And here is one of my favorites that I caught in Maryland. It's what they call a bilateral Gernandomorph, both sexes in one butterfly. Best of both worlds, right? A male on the left and female on the right. Here is your Baltimore checker spot, which I'm sure occurs in Garrett County somewhere. I don't know. I don't care about catching them because they're really not that common here. Now, there's something very unique also in this case is a dog-faced butterfly, Sulfur, which shouldn't even be here. It occurs in the South, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, and this was given to me by my friend Phil Keene. This dog face is probably 30, 40 years old. It was from the Eastern Shore. Also, you'll see a butterfly. It looks pretty ragged. and you see one that's not. This is a hybrid between a white admiral and a red spotted purple. It's called a blend zone where they occur. This specific specimen was in my backyard in Whitemarsh. I was very surprised, needless to say. And here is a dainty sulfur, which is a county record that I caught right on our street. So there's some, probably the first time everyone's ever recorded in the county, according to all the records that have been kept. That's what I was told from a former collector and researcher, Dick Smith. Okay. Any questions about Swallowtail? Anyone have a question? Any questions from anyone online?
Yes.
Tiger swallowtail? They're yellow and black. No, what you're describing is probably, yeah, could you repeat the question? Oh, the butterflies that you see in your yard of different colors, they're all different, they're different species. What you're seeing is probably spice bush swallowtail, black swallowtail, dark female. The spice bush swallowtail, I have an example of that here, has blue in the hind wing. You probably have seen that one. Yeah. And there's some with no blue. That's, could be a dark female tiger swallowtail too. Yeah. And the size, in the spring, they're smaller. Swallowtails are smaller. Okay, fire away. I can give you an example of the, what is it, the spice bush swallowtail? One of the swallowtails has eyes on the front of the caterpillar. Have you reared that? Yeah. It's got the eye spots. And I think some kind of protuberance comes out with some kind of an odor that kind of keeps the enemies away. So why do I collect them? Them meaning insects? It's a passion. It's also a way that I've been able to fuel my passion, but also offer to collecting information on ranges of insects, where they occur, where they don't occur now, forms, also finding new species or new ranges for the butterflies. So it's been a lifelong hobby. It's fascinating. And for those people who like birds, I love when I'm out collecting butterflies, I notice the birds too. And if you're a birder, you notice the butterflies. In Arizona, I'm in heaven when I'm in Arizona, because when you collect insects, you see all the other wildlife, the snakes, the birds, the 4 or 5 species of hummingbirds. So okay. How do I preserve specimens, and how do you keep from the scales from rubbing off? And I like that fact that someone says scales, because when people said powder, they are scales. It's you have to be very careful when you catch a butterfly. Don't touch the wings; the scales will come off. So I do not touch the wings at all, if at all possible. Now, to preserve them, it's kind of tricky sometimes. And maybe you can see in this box, I have a little fumigant box, and in that I have a mothball. If in fact you did not keep any mothballs or whatever you'd like to use, this collection would be turned to dust. And unfortunately, I've had that happen a couple times. So, and the other thing is, I keep my dehumidifier on all the time, so they don't become moldy. You keep them out of the sun because they will fade. You know, some people put them up on the wall, they're going to fade. So everything you see here is covered, whether it's in my cabinet or stacked on top of each other with a cover. So, and so you keep the moisture from coming in, and the dermestids. One time I had a collection and my dehumidifier wasn't working. I didn't know that. I opened up the box and I had a bunch of pinned mold, white mold. And really, yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Sulfurs and whites. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on cabbage butterflies. They're everywhere. Oh, you see them, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere. You have your yellow sulfur, the Fritillaries. You've got the orange sulfur, which is your erythemy. And then you probably see now, this is interesting, a very large lime colored sulfur flying, fast and strong, Phoebus senna. It's out, it comes up this way in the fall, and it can really fly. And it's a beautiful lime colored sulfur. You know, it's good size. So that's blue and no, they're another, we'll talk about that. They're another group. Yeah, that's another whole interesting group. Yeah. If you found, I have a Nysippe, which is a sleepy orange. If you go to Ladue Gardens, they're everywhere. This is a spring form of Nysippe. They're not everywhere, but they're around. I also have a very rare form of Philodice that has no borders on the wing. It's hardly at all. And this is this here. This is pretty uncommon form. Usually when you see sulfurs, they have that black border, but this one does not. I think that, and then there's that dog face I was telling you about. So then you've got the little sulfur, Lisa. They're out. I don't know where all the time. They're kind of sporadic and not, you can't count on them all the time. Then you got Proto-Dice, which is the checkered white, common down south. I even caught it in New Mexico. Checkered white looks like a cabbage with a lot more black markings on the wings. Where you see them, you could be lucky enough to see one in an old field somewhere around here, but more or less probably down south. I caught some at Soldier's Delight years ago. So keep your eye out for that. Now, a very rare butterfly, a very rare sulfur, white, is the Olympia Marbling. And I did bring 3 examples of the Olympia Marbling. These 3 here used to be fairly common at Green Ridge State Forest. And they're still around, but they're not as common as they used to be. So the Olympia Marbling, when they're fresh, the underwing has a pink hue to it. Again, you might see it if you go to Green Ridge State Forest. Now, I'm going to be repeating the location of Green Ridge State Forest because that's a good place to go. And if anyone wants to know where and when, I'll be glad to tell them where to go to catch butterflies. I think I first encountered the Olympia Marbling years ago in Green Ridge State Forest. Another rare white is the West Virginia white, which I don't know where to tell you to go catch it. I caught it up high above Harper's Ferry, and I think I was still in Maryland at that time. Kind of a nondescript white butterfly, no markings like the cabbage. So, and then we talked about Nysippe, and we talked about Iole, that county record of the dainty sulfur, which we looked at already. I think that was, where was that? There it is, right there. Okay, any questions about whites or sulfurs? And I know I've talked and showed you before about the dog face. If you look at the forewing, it has the outline of a side view of a dog. And that's exactly why they call it a dog face. Now, out west, there's a dog face species with a beautiful orange and purple and pink hind wing. That's out west. Never have seen it. By the way, just to backtrack for a moment, I brought with me too that intergrade I told you about, the dark females and light females. Here's one I caught again, luckily in my backyard. And again, that, just to be real specific, the white admiral with the tiny and the small hind wing markings is called, that form is called Proserpina, if you're interested. Well, they eat a range of common plants, you know, dandelion and there's grasses, and I'm not sure specific wise, but they're common because they have so many food plants. There's restrictions. Now, if it depends on what state you go to. Some insects are, some butterflies are protected. There is a butterfly that I think should be protected and is almost extinct, which we'll go over in just a little while, called the grizzled skipper. But it depends what state you go to. In Maryland, I don't think so, because a lot of the butterflies are not common to begin with because of their habits. So that gives them a chance to survive. They do their own controls, as we talked about with the Olympia Marbling.
Jane says that they collected 50 years ago, never saw clouds of sulfur, and now they see them often. You know why?
Good question. Why we see cloudless sulfurs more now, and I agree with that. Their food plant, senna, is probably maybe more ubiquitous and more common now. Or that's what happens with butterflies. They expand their range because, geez, it's pretty warm out. I think I'll fly further north and keep flying. So a lot has to do with weather patterns, food availability, and population booms. And that's what happens. They expand their range. Years and years ago, red admirals were really common. They were just everywhere. And now they're back to where they were, very sporadic. So it depends where you go, you know, what state. Okay. Now we'll get into the blue butterflies, the blue colored ones. Glycinids, blues, and hair streaks. Okay. Hair streaks in the state of Maryland. You got the common gray hair streak, which you may have seen in your garden. It's gray, obviously. In the spring, they're not gray. They're really more of a brown, a darker color, because it's cooler. and the darker scales absorb the heat. Then you've got Calanus, the oak hair streak, which I think has become less common. You find it around oak around June. They're in green ridge, but they're very sporadic. They're brown. You'll see, look them up in any butterfly books that you have. By the way, some of the best photographs of butterflies, if you get online, called bugguide.net, that has photos of species in the United States. That's a good resource for you. Also, Butterflies of America website is wonderful. It talks about every butterfly in the Americas. I mean, all the way down south, South America, and it's you go online, Butterflies of America, and go on the interactive list section, and there's a photo and a list of every butterfly. My wife and I were in Aruba in early April, and there were butterflies there, and I wasn't sure what they were. I had an idea what they were, but I used the Butterflies of America website to ascertain, their true identity. So they're two good sources, plus the books that you can buy. But bugguide.net, wonderful. I have some photographs on there of things that I've caught. You can. Edward's eye, Edward's hair streak. Oh, I don't know where to tell you. You used to be able to get it at near Nottingham State Park in Pennsylvania, but that's Pennsylvania. And they used to be at Soldier's Delight. I don't think you can collect there anymore. Blue hair streak, M album. And it's named that way because the hind wing is in the shape of it, markings in the shape of an M. And the males are bright blue. The females are less colorful. That's M album. They're probably out, I'm going to say 2 or 3 times a year. I'm not sure. Talking about a purple and a blue hair streak, you're talking about the great purple hair streak. A butterfly that looks like it should be from South America. And does anyone have an idea of what the great purple hair streak feeds on? Anyone have an idea? Mistletoe. Mistletoe. One of the best places you used to be able to see it is the Eastern Shore. That comes out at least 3 to 4 times a year. Females are large and kind of gray and blue. The males are bright blue. I've caught the subspecies in Arizona, and they're just beautiful. A great purple hair streak, and of course, they say hair streak because the hind wings have hairs. Look like a little hair coming down. Especially in the great purple hair streak, they're very long. I don't have great purple hair streak. If you drive along the Eastern Shore, you'll see clumps of vegetation up in trees that shouldn't be there, but that's the mistletoe. And in the wintertime, you can see where they've been, but and they feed on mistletoe in Arizona also. So it's one of my favorite hair streaks, the great purple hair streak. Now we're getting into the rare stuff. Caryovorus is a hickory hair streak. Good luck with that. I say that because I've only encountered it a few times in my life. It looks very much like Calanus. Okay. Markings like Calanus, you'll have to look them up on Bug Guide. But Caryovorus, I don't know where to tell you to get it. You just have to be lucky. I think I caught it one time. I don't even remember. It's been so long ago. You can look at the photographs and it'll give you a better idea what they really look like. Ontario, the north, they call it Satyrium favonius Ontario. Again, good luck with that one. That's a very hard, very rare butterfly. It's been in Maryland. I've caught it in Maryland. Males are hard to find. You find mostly females. when you go down south toward Georgia and Florida, it morphs into an unbelievable color. The hindwings become a hot orange and red with very long tails. More rare stuff. Oh my gosh. Kingi, Kingi. Where to find it? And it's good luck is the Cypress Swamp, the Maryland, Delaware boundary in those woods around July 1st, something like that. Kind of a nondescript. I mean, it's a very pretty hair streak, but that's very rare. Very rare. King's hair streak. And then as we go down the list for rare stuff, the early hair streak, Aurora Laeta. Beautiful butterfly. I even caught it in Green Ridge. I've caught it in Pennsylvania, but it's a beautiful blue and green butterfly with red spots. You just have to be lucky. And it comes out probably, I'm not really sure about Aurora Laeta. I caught big numbers, not big numbers, but so many in New Hampshire one time. You can look that up. And in Arizona, they've got a different subspecies, which is even prettier. Now, some a little bit more common hair streak wise, the olive hair streak. If you've got red cedar, it's a green hair streak with white markings. Feeds on, like I said, red cedar comes out at probably twice a year. They fly high up in the tree. The olive hair streak. Now, something that looks a lot like the olive hair streak is Hessel's hair streak. Hesseli feeds in white cedar. You might find it in the Western Shore somewhere, wherever there's white cedar. But it's a beautiful iridescent green. Look it up on Bug Guide. I'll show you many photographs of Hesseli. I know I keep repeating Bug Guide, but that is a wonderful resource that you can get online and check it out. Okay, I think I've covered the hair streak. Any questions about hair streaks? I personally think that hair streaks have decreased in number. A friend of mine, Phil Keene, he and I used to go down to the Eastern Shore. Hey, Phil. And he can attest to this. We used to go down to the Eastern Shore and guaranteed to see the great purple hair streak feeding on like ironweed and different plants on the Eastern Shore. Now we've been down there since then and it's almost non-existent. So usually that's the case. Yeah. Yep. I do have an example of that gray hair streak I told you about in the spring. This is a kind of an aberrant form. It's darker gray. And here is that M album in the spring, the hair streak we talked about. In the spring, it's dark brown instead of a lighter color. Let's talk about blues. Someone said, hey, azures are your favorite group. Wow. Years ago, there was a lot of research about Celestrina blues that feed on, well, there's a different blue that feeds on holly, a different blue that feeds on this, and the spring azure now has been broken into many different kinds of spring azures. And right now they're out, not in big numbers again. And the blues start coming out like they said, the spring azure that comes out in April or something like that. The differences between things that azures that feed on holly versus another plant is pretty nondescript, but there are a number of species of spring azures. Everyone knows the eastern tailed blue, right? Very common. It's in your yard, maybe. It's a small blue butterfly with a tail and a little eye spot, and the hind wing, very small. Now, the beautiful blue, I think it's very beautiful, is Ligdamus. It's a blue. I have an example of it here. Again, I repeat, it's Green Ridge State Forest around mid-April to late April. It feeds on wild pea, I think, something like that. That's Ligdamus. And if you see the underside, it's got dark spots. I don't know if you can see that or not. This was caught in Green Ridge on the 18th of April. You see it? Okay. Okay. Well, you can come up afterwards and take a look. Okay. Okay. Any questions about blues? Okay, coppers. Oh, you had a question? Go ahead. I don't think they're generalists. They feed on, and I don't know that, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I know what the plant looks like. I don't know. Someone that's online may know the food plant, but they're so ubiquitous. They're so common. Yeah. Anyone know the name of the food plant? I don't remember the name. Eastern tail blue. Cupido, I think it's called. Coppers. Another case of a very beautiful copper. The bronze copper used to be common on the eastern shore. Again, I'll mention my friend Phil Keen and I used to go down there years ago, and you could find them along the ditches. Now you go there, you don't find them. The farmers have planted all the way up to the roads, which has probably killed off their food plant, which is, I think, dock. I'm not positive. I think it's dock. But look up bronze copper on Bug Guide, or just go on your phone, look up bronze copper. It's a beautiful butterfly. Did you have it? You have it? You're going to hold it up and show? That's it, everyone. It's a beautiful, and it's a good sized butterfly. Beautiful. Maybe so. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Bronze copper is, I think, dock. Yeah. Which I think grows in ditches, in the ditches. It does. Yeah. And if I've seen some where the forewings, when it's open, the forewings have black streaks. So collecting has really changed in the Eastern Shore. It really has. We'll get to skippers in a few minutes. We'll talk about that. The American copper. You probably have seen this small butterfly, maybe not. Iridescent orange forewings and gray hind wings. It's not as common as it used to be, I don't think. The American copper. And then and so that's why it's so common, because red clover is everywhere. Did you find a picture of it? That's wonderful. That's it. That's it. American copper. Now, a rare form of the American copper, the hind wing is gray, but the orange has been replaced by a very light whitish orange. That's a pretty rare form. Now, I don't know if anybody's been out to Garrett County. I'm sure I know some of you live out that way. Cranberry bogs in Garrett County, they're home to the bog copper. And I think that butterfly, if it's not protected, it's very close to being protected. A very small copper, gray with red markings. Cranesville Swamp. Some of you live out that way, yeah. So you got to trek out into the cranberry bog. If it's wet, you're in trouble, right? You got to wear boots. But otherwise, I've walked out there with Phil, my friend. Yeah. If you ever want to go try to find the bronze copper, go on some secluded edges of lakes. Might be a good place to find it. Okay. Any questions about coppers? It'd be hard to tell without a picture. I really enjoy the fact when people send me pictures or they, can you identify this? And that I really keeps me on my toes. That's fun. And sometimes if I don't know, I don't know, but I try. You know, experience has been the best teacher. More Lycaenids, elfins, early spring butterfly, pine elfin, Nifon is found at Green Ridge around mid-April to May. Brown and black checkered looking butterfly, Nifon. It's wonderful. That's why I enjoy it. The internet, you can just put in the word Nifon, it'll come right up. And they're not as common as they used to be. And then you have Augustinus, which is a smaller elfin, which is more orange and brown. And then you've got Iris, which feeds on lupin, I think. Iris, very hard to come by. Although I encountered it at Salisbury. That looks like a different subspecies than the one that's kind of gray and black. Any questions about blues or hair streaks? It's very hard to get a hair streak with its tails intact. It's hard. You got to be really careful. And they're a lot of fun to mount and be really careful. Okay, nymphalids. We're talking, oh my gosh, the common wood Pegola. Maybe you've encountered it. Maybe you haven't. It's a brown butterfly that flies the distinct flying pattern up and down in grassy fields. The forewings have a yellow patch with 2 eye spots. It's called Pegola. And my wife and I were just in Minnesota and I caught the subspecies out there. It lacks that yellow patch. Common wood satyr comes out twice, a little tan butterfly with eye spots. You see it up and down in the woods flying, they're common. Soysabeus, I think that's the name. It may have changed. That's more down south. A friend of mine caught one down at Port Charles, I think. And my friend Phil, I keep mentioning his name, but he and I have collected together in many years. He caught one at Green Ridge. If you ever have time to go a place to see, hopefully, a lot of butterflies, it's Green Ridge State Forest. Yeah, I can tell you exactly where to go, and well, you never know. You never know what to expect when you're collecting. That's what's fun. At Green Ridge, Green Ridge, R-I-D-G-E. It's Allegheny County. It's out there fairly far. Anglewings, commas, question marks. Progny, oh boy, we'll go over that. But you've seen anglewings, the commas, the underwing has a mark, looks like a comma, and they're called anglewings because their wings have cut ridges. You can look them up, commas, and the question mark has a question mark on the hind wing underneath. I was at Ladue yesterday. I saw a comma or question mark. I don't know because they are so skittish. Progny, gray comma. Phil and I were out in Western Maryland again, way out, and I caught one. That's the only place to find it in Maryland. You can find it in other places, but a gray progny, very interesting looking anglewing, and the underside's very distinct. So they're the anglewings, and by the way, they overwinter as an adult. So maybe in March or April, you might see an anglewing because it's been hibernating under a stone, under a log, under debris, and it comes out. Some of them are pretty ragged. Then they mate and they have another brood come June or July. I do actually. Here is an example of some commas from Green Ridge State Forest. I think that was April, so they're a little bit ragged. The best road to go on at Green Ridge is 15 Mile Creek Road, north and south of Route 68. And as we all know there. Painted ladies. Wow. Who knows how many species of painted ladies we have? Anyone know how much? I wish. Oh boy, I wish. You can go out of South America. You have, when I think I was a kid, this painted lady was called Hunter's butterfly. It's virginiensis. Big eye spots underneath, brown and black. Some of you are shaking your head like you've seen it. Then you got the larger painted lady called Cardui, which comes up from the south, a very large, skittish painted lady. If you have flowers in your house at your house, there's a good chance you'll see a lot of these species. Painted ladies for sure. You have snout butterflies, which probably is not too well known. The palpi and the head, they form looks like a snout. Snouts are not commonly found. They're not real attractive, but it's a kind of a brown and black. And you look that up on the internet too, you'll see snout butterflies. I do not. I'm sorry. You know what I forgot? No, I haven't forgot. The mourning cloak. Boy, as a kid, they seem to be much more common. And they overwinter. And here's a example of one I caught in April at Green Ridge State Forest. Very attractive and very hairy, by the way. And I think have become a lot less common than they used to be. As a kid, oh, there's a mourning cloak. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't hardly ever see them. And they'll overwinter too, as I said. Pearl crescents, you've seen pearl crescents, a little brown and orange butterfly. There's looks like a larger edition of a pearl crescent called a silvery checker spot, Nycteus. Looks like Theros, that little butterfly. The on steroids. It's a big Nycteus, the silvery checker spot. The pearl crescent looks like a pearl crescent on steroids. Big. Let's see. Of course, we all know about the Monarch. I have a picture. I mean, I brought a specimen. I was recently exhibiting insects at Anne Marie Gardens, the Insectivore, and down at Solomon's Island, I caught this dark female. It's not only dark, but it's also very small. And of course, one of my favorites, and probably one of the rarest butterflies in my collection, is this bilateral Gernandomorph monarch. As I said, both sexes in one butterfly. Very good question. How do we know the difference between a male and female monarch, which is related to this Gernandomorph? Well, it's a good question because the male monarchs have what in their hind wing? What's that? The little scent patch, tiny on a vein. The females do not have that scent patch. And as you can see here, none on the other is the female. Now, I didn't know it was that when I was catching it, but whenever you see a small specimen of a butterfly, catch it because it could be something going on, aberration. And in this case, I caught it. I took it up to my office. My coworker looked at it and said, Bob, you know, that looks kind of different. That looks kind of odd. What do you mean, Sandy? I said, she said, look, it's got a dot in one wing and no dot in the other. I said, holy crap. I didn't say holy, I said, holy crap. I've been offered a lot of money for that. No. Now, there are Gernandomorphs in other species of butterflies. My friend Phil caught a spice bush swallowtail one time that was left side male, right side female. Very rare, very rare. You just have to catch not everything, but look at everything. You never know when you'll have a Gernandomorph. The interesting question, of course, is what will the offspring look like? Who knows? That'd be a wonderful research project. But I've been offered hundreds of dollars for that. And I think, you know what? You have the money, you spend the money's gone. And so what? The butterfly is more important to me. And I want to pass it on after I'm gone, my whole collection. But that'd be one of the most interesting things. Monarchs, like I said, are not protected by the Fish and Wildlife yet. As I said before, it was protected by that other organization. People have probably been reading the news or watching the specials on TV. We're down in Mexico where they migrate to. It's been cold down there, land practices. And they're in there by the thousands, but they're also die by the thousands. Now, another nymphalid, which I have brought with me, is the Viceroy. This one in particular I caught near my home, has very few band, a very light band in the hind wing. It's a rare form, but the monarch is poisonous. As you know, the milkweed plant, when you break it open, it's got what? The milky white substance, and that's poisonous. So the Viceroy lucks out. Birds think it's a monarch. Petesian mimicry, it's called. And so the Viceroy, which feeds on willow, I think. I don't think there's many Viceroys. I saw one yesterday at Ladue, and I missed catching it to put it in the butterfly house, but it was good to see it nevertheless. But no, that's the Viceroy. Personally, I don't think so. I think they used to, again, I keep repeating myself, but they're not as common as they used to be. and they fly like a typical, down in Florida, the Viceroy, the Florida Viceroy is twice as big, and it is Floridensis, I think. Floridensis. It's brick, very dark red. It's a beautiful, but that's down in Florida. There you go. Wow. Very good question. What's the typical lifespan? It depends on the species. It depends on the amount of predators. Depends on, maybe it can't find its food plant to lay eggs. I'm guessing. I don't know. The monarchs live a long time. Obviously, we know that, and they're resilient. They don't die very easily. But some butterflies, I'm guessing, live a week or two. I'm not sure. Sometimes if you see them, they look really ragged. They've been around for quite a while. So I don't know. I think it kind of just depends on the species and, again, all the other factors involved. And then, of course, another source of butterflies dying is when cars hit them, which you can't eliminate. That just happens. So and butterflies, migrate besides the monarch. Gosh, the painted lady, that migrates thousands of miles too. How it navigates, angle of the sun, magnetic fields, who knows for sure. And I think just as fascinating about butterflies, and I've, to this day, it fascinates me ever since I was a kid to this day, the metamorphosis, the whole metamorphosis. When you really think about it, I can put a dot on a piece of paper, and that's the egg. Now, some eggs are bigger. They hatch into, as we know, caterpillars. They eat their eggshell. Caterpillars form a pupa. We know that. And in the case of a monarch, you've all seen monarchs maybe mature in the pupal form. It's fascinating. But I mean, I hope you take away tonight my fascination with what an incredible process from a caterpillar full of chlorophyll. I think that's the green. To a pupa, to a butterfly that emerges. That's the same on this side and same on that side, except, most of the time. It emerges with, as you said, the word scales, thousands of scales arranged in patterns. Think about that. I mean, there's a lot of scientific papers out there that describes this process, but it's fascinating. Just take a moment to think about it. It goes from that caterpillar to this amazing other kind of insect. It's truly amazing. And to this day, this is one of the things that I hope everyone takes away, the fascination with, nature in general. We talked about the red admiral, and let's see. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about host plants, but I would say, and you had a question? Please, sure. Yeah. It's like a weed. Hmm. Oh, you got that right. Joe Pieweed. Oh my goodness. We have some in the end of our street, but like a place like Ladue is, yeah, they love that. And now it's kind of on its way out. You'll see that when it gets kind of brown, but yes, hmm, cone flowers. Yeah, that coneflower is interesting. My wife planted a whole bunch of it in the front yard. And when they go by a wayside, which initially they attract a lot of butterflies. Here's the birding, the part I like about birds. The goldfinches love. So, it's a win-win. I love to see goldfish. It looks like a yellow bullet flying with no wings. And the females are brown. They're not as colorful. Sure. Yeah. Now we talked about the Baltimore checker spot. Does anyone know the host plant of the Baltimore checker spot? Turtle head. That's a female and male. And the deer love turtle head, right? And the deer eats a turtle head. Hmm? Want me to open it up? Sure. The deer love turtle head. When they eat the turtle head, they probably eat the eggs, the pupa, and they don't care. But there it is. Euphydrius phaeton. Fayette. I agree. Absolutely. You need a big patch. And they have some lower wetlands, which would be conducive for turtle head. But yeah, I mean, if you go there, I would suggest going, if you want to look at just general butterflies, especially the monarchs and the tiger swallowtails. Um, there's probably a populations of Baltimore checker spot somewhere in bogs, somewhere, swamps in Western Maryland. If you ever find them, just take a photograph and I think they're still around. And they're around in the United States too. Checker spots are just there's so many species of checker spots in the United States. I won't get into that one. But let's see, what else did we want to go over? Oh, fritillaries, great spangled fritillary. I know I've repeated myself many times, but I didn't see as many great spangled fritillaries this year. It's a common orange butterfly with black spots, Sibylle, it's called. The females, interesting about the females, they almost like go to sleep practically in the midsummer, and then they come out in the fall and they're really large. So Sibylle, great spangled fritillary, usually a common butterfly. And you've got Atlantis, which is a smaller fritillary that occurs probably in Garrett County. Then you've got the Gulf fritillary, common down south. I call it the subspecies in Aruba, actually. And if one year I think they saw them at Assateague. They may come further north. Um, Claudia, variegated fritillary. brown with white spots. That's moderately common. Silver bordered Fritillary. Oh, it's hard to find. It's in the wet, boggy areas. Very silvery and orange underneath. Aphrodite looks very similar to Sibylle. And I've noticed they've dropped off in numbers. I caught a few years ago in Western Maryland. They're a beautiful butterfly. Aphrodite. Okay, I think I've covered. I don't think I do. I don't think I brought any. I could have brought so many cases, but I had to limit myself. Now, just to digress a tad for any moth. I hear, oh yeah, I have thousands of moths, and I love mothing too. But what I have is something very interesting called the IO moth, which is, you know, that is a Saturnid moth. IO, there's the female, there's the male, and look at this one. This is an aberration of the male IO. I know we're talking about butterflies, but I had to throw this in. I caught that at Elk Neck State Park. If you drive, you turn on Route 272 and you go down a ways, there's a convenience store on the right side. Years ago, I went there early in the morning, just general collecting when they had lights. And I caught this and I went, oh my goodness. I mean, this is really a rare. So for those moth people like myself too, though. Polyphemus. Yeah. Uh-huh. Personally, I think moths seem to be doing better than butterflies. And the Polyphemus is it just differs in them. Each year it's different. Years ago, and I have a picture of it, someone caught a Gernandomorph, Polyphemus moth. Well, I won't get into moth. That's another whole feathery antenna on the left, very thin antenna on the right. That was a Polyphemus moth. But where you are, they may become common, and maybe next year not so common. Yeah, yeah, they're done for the year, just about. I think now they come out twice. I think. Um, did you say meaner? Meat, more meat. Oh boy. Yeah, and that's why birds love moths. When I go out to a store in Western Maryland, I'll get there and all I see are wings left on the ground because the swallows, blue jays, etc., they love the abdomen because it's full of nutrition. Yeah. Did have a big abdomen. She was probably gravid. Yeah, she probably was full of eggs. Polyphemus moths, like Saturnids, they have no mouth parts. Their living stage is basically the caterpillar. They have no mouth parts. Their whole purpose is to propagate, pass it on. The eye spots, you think the eye spots would frighten pests and predators away, but they love that big abdomen. I better stop talking about moths. I could go on. I could go. Oh, we were just in Minnesota to see the grandkids, and I caught maybe 80, 100 moths, and it was just fascinating what you see. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, skippers, tough group because some of them are very difficult to identify. Their muscles and their wings are very formative, so they're very hard to mount. Friends of mine cut the muscles a little bit so they can spread their wings. Silver spotted skipper, you all know what that is. It feeds on locust. The brown skipper with silver in the hind wing. The long-tail skipper. I caught one in Ladue a couple years ago in October. This looks like a skipper with long tails, much more common in the south. Arenas skippers, they're kind of black, nondescript. They feed on vetch. They're out now. Arenas baptisia, Zabulon, hobomoke. I think one of them is double brooded. That's out now. But one of the butterflies, and I'll end with this. One of the butterflies, a skipper, which is probably, they've said, is extinct in Maryland, Purgus Centauri Wyandotte. My friend Phil and another friend, Fred Paris, or three of us, have sent in legs of that butterfly for research. I think ours is a little bit different of subspecies, but I caught some many, many years ago, and it hasn't been found since. Purgus Centauri Wyandotte at the checker spot. I personally think it's still maybe in some small area in Western Maryland, but I don't know. But what really did them in, I think, my own opinion, spraying for the gypsy moths years ago, killed a lot of things besides the gypsy moths. And I think because Purgus was feeding on wild strawberry, it concentrated on that leaf and the larva died. But that's one of the, probably the rarest, one of the rarest butterflies in Maryland, if it's still here. Okay, folks, you can come up and see some things and check out what I brought. There's some Arizona butterflies. Help yourself. So anyway, thanks everyone for your attention and your questions. And it was nice meeting new members and some older folks I know.
And now come on up if you have any questions for Bob. You come up and take a look. Bob, did you have some things to give to folks?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
And thank you everybody for being online. Where can you take the and show the ones that are from Arizona? We'll show you some of the specimens over here from Arizona.